All right, so we've seen this same graph before. You didn't realize it, but it's the same as this graph right here. What I did was I kind of limited my scope to only these dots. I took away the color and I took away the size of dot. And we'll talk about all of that a little bit later in some other videos, because Gapminder is something we're going to keep coming back to because it's so darn amazing and so useful for changing how we look at the world. But in the meantime, I shrunk it down. There it is right there. That's the same scatter plot. Now the response variable is the variable whose value can be explained by the value of the explanatory or predictor variable. That's kind of a roundabout way of saying, look, the response variable is the one that changes whenever you change something about the explanatory variable. In other words, the explanatory variable is the thing that you fiddle around with like it's independent. That's what we call it in algebra class. And the response variable is dependent upon that independent variable. It changes. So for example, a country has an income and the math scores for that country are dependent, are responding to how wealthy that country is. Now, what is the explanatory variable in this case? Well, explanatory variables go on the horizontal axis, as was mentioned up here in the definition of a scatter diagram. So the explanatory variable is income per person, which is the gross domestic product per capita. So what they do is they take all the stuff a country produces and they figure it out in dollars, and then they divide it by how many people there are in that country per capita. Capita meaning head, right? In Latin, well, caput meaning head. All right, so then the math scores must be the response variable, right? And technically this was for 8th graders. The people at Michigan State University are the ones that distribute this test, and they give it to actually a few different age levels, but we were looking at the 8th graders in particular. Now, the oil-rich country of Qatar is the wealthiest nation in the world with a gross domestic product of $76,900.53 per person per year, but it's only scored 307 on the math test. Circle Qatar, and you can see I already did that because I already made this video and then it got eaten by my machine. But there it is right there. All right. So what might be a problem with including Qatar in this data set? Well, Qatar is an outlier. It is far removed from the rest of the group. It has a huge domestic product, but a very low math score. In other words, maybe Qatar has some unique, here, hold on. Qatar has some unique properties that other countries don't possess. So it might not be appropriate to compare it to other countries. Okay, so for starters, I'm just thinking of some things here. It's a very oil-rich nation. It's on the Arabian Peninsula. I brought it up on Google Maps. Here it is. So here's the Arabian Peninsula. There's Qatar right here. It's that little peninsula. It's extremely oil-rich. It's very, very small. Iraq, by the way, is up there, in case you were wondering. All right, so it's very wealthy. It's very rich, but it doesn't have a huge population. It also doesn't invest a lot in its population's education, right? Oopsie. So you can see, just to give it a little bit more picture, there's the Mediterranean up there. There's India, right? There's Europe. There's Africa. And there's little Qatar right there. China's over here. Okay? All right. So Qatar has a lot of money, but it doesn't necessarily spend that money on education of citizens. It spends that money on obviously different things. So, oops, I spelled that wrong. All right. What does this graph reveal about the math scores in the world? Well, in general, you can see that the more the income the country has, the higher the math scores. Wealthier countries are up here on the top right, poorer countries over here, with Qatar being a very unusual exception, right? So, hold on one second. In general, there's a positive relationship, meaning higher scores go with higher income. The more money a country has, the higher its scores are, right? Wealthier countries tend to do better than poor ones.